All right, so the title of my presentation is Vanity of Vanities, a Theological Anthropology of Ecclesiastes. And this is my Religion 490 paper. Since my major is so small, I don't have to do an exit exam. I just have to write a really big paper. And this is the presentation that I got from doing that paper. But I did this paper in an attempt to study the relationship between God and humanity in Ecclesiastes. As this presentation will hopefully show, the relationship between God and humanity in Ecclesiastes, with the exception of the book of Job, is vastly different than any other book in the Bible. So let's talk a little bit about the author. The writer of Ecclesiastes attempts to validate his writing by claiming at the very beginning of the book to be King Solomon. However, dating has shown that the Hebrew used in Ecclesiastes puts its composition well after the time of Solomon and any other connection to Davidic lineage. Also, the book itself does not consistently maintain its implication that Solomon was the author, even though verse 1 of chapter 1 and verse 12 of chapter 1 declare the author to have been king over Israel at some point in time. 12, 9 through 11 overturn this notion, and throughout the rest of the book, the persona of a royal teacher altogether disappears and does not occur again. So in summation, the author is definitely not King Solomon. We know very little about the author. The author refers to himself as the teacher, which is the English translation of the word Kohelet. Therefore, the author is referred to as the teacher or Kohelet interchangeably. So when compared to the rest of the Bible, Ecclesiastes is a whole different type of book. Someone might say it's a very different breed of book. It's a whole different type of scripture. Ecclesiastes falls into the wisdom literature genre like Proverbs, but the book is pretty much full of the author's commentary on the interaction between traditional theology of his time period and the world around him. The purpose of this book is basically how this person, known simply as the teacher, views the world. When reading Ecclesiastes, one gets the feeling the author is not really out to make a name for himself. He's not looking for prestige. He doesn't seem to be seeking glory or fame, but it does not seem his writing was meant for anything more than just personal reflection. One could say that it's just pretty much a few letters or some journals back and forth between he and some students. The book portrays a teacher whose aim is to model for his students the importance of making good, sound, relative judgments. And on the other hand, W. Sibley Towner says, Ecclesiastes is best viewed as a notebook of ideas by a philosopher-theologian about the downside and the upside of life. So enough with all that stuff. That's all boring. Let's get to the heart of the matter, the good stuff. So one has to look no further than the second verse of chapter 1 to find the theme of the entire book. This verse says, "Vanity of vanities," says the teacher, "vanity of vanities, all is vanity." The New Revised Standard, the King James Version, the New American Standard, the American Standard all have the word vanity in that verse. But the New International Version, today's New International Version, and the New Living Translation all have meaningless instead of vanity. But the Message translation actually gets this one right. It gets it closer than any of those. The Message translation says, all is smoke. Everything in life is smoke, which is closer to the Hebrew word. With all that said, the author in chapter 1, verse 2 is saying that every single thing about life is really like smoke. It's like a breath. If you could grab a hold of something in life, if you could really find some stable ground, once you got to it, you'd realize there's nothing really there. The Hebrew word is traditionally defined as breath, which is to imply that everything in life is fleeting. And the word is used over 60 times in Ecclesiastes, and this high usage is a direct reflection on the author's thoughts on life and God. Chapter 1, verses 2 through 11 is framed in the New Revised Standard like a poem. It doesn't look like a standard paragraph. It looks like a traditional poem. And the poem is made up entirely of the teacher's reflections on life. Chapter 1 sets the tone for the rest of the book, meaning that each chapter has the teacher reflecting on something about life and then giving his opinion on that situation. Chapter 1, verse 4 says, "A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever." And verse 9 says, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun." Verse 15 says, "What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted." This prose is kind of the author's way of saying that things are the way they are in this world, and there's nothing we can do about it. What's been broken or bent can't be made correct, and what does not exist cannot be brought into being. Though many people may take the teacher's words in these verses to be negative and pessimistic, one could really gain a lot by stepping back and looking at the reality of our world. I mean, rules are in place that are firm and reliable. If you jump off a building, you're going to fall. If you cut yourself, you're going to bleed. If you stay underwater for longer than 5 minutes, you're going to die. I mean, those are absolute rules. Those are absolute truths. We can't change that. These rules that allow us to live are also the same rules that will inevitably bring us to the grave. On to chapter 3. Has anyone in here heard the song, like, Turn by the Birds? It's like, to everything, turn, turn. Well, that's based on chapter 3, verses 1 through 8 of Ecclesiastes. And those verses say, for everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time for hate, a time for war and a time for peace. It's beautiful. I really think that's one of the most beautiful pieces of Scripture in the entire Bible. But people stop there and they don't keep reading. If you were to keep reading verses 9 through 15, it literally says God gave us stuff to do to keep us busy from noticing the truth of the world. According to the New Revised Standard Version, verse 11 has the teacher literally saying, they, meaning humanity, can't find out what God has done from beginning to end. This verse shows the teacher believes God's work and purpose from beginning to end remain to mankind forever incomprehensible and inexplicable. Verse 14 reverberates the message from 1 through 15, which is that nothing can be added to or taken away from God's work. So the theme of Ecclesiastes can pretty much be summed up by saying, eat, drink, and be merry, because when you die, you can't take anything you've earned on this life with you. Another theme in the book can best be said by the New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman when he says, it is simply not true. It's simply not true that the righteous are rewarded in life and the wicked perish. According to the teacher, life is futile. Or as the teacher said earlier, life is vanity. All the hard work people do in this life means nothing in the next life to the teacher. Life is a constant stream of monotony and nothing seems to ever really change. Rich people get richer, poor people get poorer, and the teacher's eyes, God seems to be nowhere. These ideas are talked about and discussed frequently throughout the book, but the potentially most troubling thing of all these themes is the teacher believes God is solely responsible for everything that happens. So this brings us to the purpose of this book and why I did this paper. Who God is to the teacher. God, according to the teacher, is a being that gives humanity unhappy business to be busy with, sets life in motion every day, but willingly chooses to hide everything about life from us. According to the teacher, nothing can be added to or taken away from what God has done. So you would think, okay, God has to do something to make up for this. But according to the teacher, what God does is God gives us the simple things in life. God allows us to eat and drink and enjoy ourselves, but God doesn't judge the wicked differently than the righteous. God seems to arbitrarily give out wealth and power while leaving some people with next to nothing. The state of the world is so bad for the teacher that he says in chapter 6, a stillborn child is better off than someone born into this earth. Verse 6 shows that he does not believe God separates the just and the unjust in the afterlife. According to his view, everyone goes to the same place when they die. So it's better for a stillborn child to skip all the suffering life has to offer, just go straight to the afterlife. But think about how much truth is in the teacher's words. None of us in this room got to choose who our parents were. Think of how many people lost everything in the recent economic downturn who did nothing wrong. What about children born into AIDS-infested Africa while we sit in this room with air conditioning with plenty of juice and fruit and biscuits and anything we could ever need just in the other room? We can never truly know why all this stuff is the way it is. And that's the thing that the teacher is questioning in this book. And to take things a step further, to make it more biblical, is what's missing from Ecclesiastes is the traditional covenant relationship between God and the people of Israel. Gone is the God who reveals God's self in specific historical events. Gone is the God who was with God's people by a pillar of fire at night and a cloud during the day. Gone is the God who spoke directly to Moses on Mount Sinai. People looking to Ecclesiastes for more stories about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joshua, and David will not hear any of it. what's offered is a completely different way of viewing the world and viewing the relationship between God and humanity. So, if you're ever feeling down in the dumps and need a little pick-me-up, take the teacher's advice. Get a nice meal, grab some wine, and enjoy yourself. As far as he's concerned, that's the best thing you can do. Rich or poor, the money you save up will cease to be yours the moment you die. Sure, you can give it to your kids, but it's like the teacher says, you never know what those little rascals are going to do with it. They may save it and do the good things with it, or they may squander it faster than you could have ever imagined. So, sure, yeah, you can give it to your kids, but some people may think it's a very negative way to look at the world, but a lot of atheists and agnostics really identify with this book. Because when you get down to it, what can we really know about the afterlife? We have faith and we have hopes about what the afterlife will bring, but can we ever really know anything about it for certain? The teacher would say no, and that's why his advice is to live each day to the fullest and to do everything you can to find joy in the little things that life brings. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Thus, the teacher would agree, when the teacher would say that there really is nothing we can do. I mean, we can try all we want, but everything in life is a cycle. I mean, what would I say? What would I say? Well, I would say that he is very jaded and very cynical. It's like he's so fed up. It's like he's thought about this stuff so much, it's really eaten away at him and gotten at him. The thing that I resonate the most with him about is, I mean, we really can't know about the afterlife. We just can't. But I would agree with Bart Ehrman in saying that there are some things in this life we can change, and we should work to change that. And even if it does nothing in the grand scheme of things, if we can help somebody enjoy their toil in life, then we are doing the best we can. So, I mean, it's an interesting book, and I like it a lot because it really does present a different type of God. This God isn't like big, powerful, mighty. God is involved in everything, but not in the typical way that we picture God to be involved. So.